Welcome to our COVID-19 session 4. My name is Jian Xie. I'm the session chair, also as the board member of UCA and AEUC Life member. Thank you so much for coming. First, I'm appreciate our AEUC president and the 2020 NCLF chair, Dr. S.K. Low, for helping us to put all our communities together by our COVID-19 session. Thanks GLUSA Wenyuan's tech support. Thanks to our volunteers, Shui Wen and Gan Qiang. COVID-19 had affected small business on so many levels. The loss of income is directly related to COVID-19, and it's becoming harder to keep the lights on and try to roll it out. I'm honored to introduce you to our first speaker, Dr. Mingtao Jiang. Dr. Mingtao Jiang was born and raised in Shandong, China. He was trained as a physician before obtaining his PhD in physiology in Canada. He conducted research on cardiac protections as a fellow and assistant professor before he was turned himself into a ginseng farmer in Madison, Wisconsin, and founded the Marathon Ginseng International Incorporation. He has been active in community service for the last 20 years. He was the founding editor of Millburg Chinese Times. He currently serves on the board of Project Access Incorporation and UCA. He was a member of the Asia Pacific Leadership Council of Andrew Yang's presidential campaign. Welcome, Dr. Jiang.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you, CLUSA, for allowing me the opportunity to share our experience. As you know, the trade war between US and China has affected our farmers the most. So today I'm going to share some of our experience or the setbacks we have, in particular, with the pandemic. I'm going to share my screen here. See what you can have. So can you see my slide right now?
No, we cannot.
No, we cannot.
You can, right? Okay. I'm all right. A co-host, or I do have the option here. Okay. Oh, okay. Now here we go. You see right now?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we see.
All right. So today, I'm just going to briefly touch on how do we survive COVID as a farming business. Before I do that, let me introduce the first US ambassador to China, which is American ginseng. In 1784, the first trade between US and China actually was carried by this merchant ship on the screen. It's called Empress of China. It shipped 30 tons of American ginseng to Canton or to Zhujiangkou, which made about $30,000 6 months later. That's a fortune at that time. Now the ginseng trade, as well as fur trade, minted the first millionaire in the US, John Jacob Astor. He ended up owning half of Manhattan, and his great-grandson, John Astor III, sunk with the Titanic. So that's just a side of the story. So the peak trade was about 600,000 pounds. This actually happened around 1900. And we are still close to that level yet. So you see, we hadn't made much progress. About us. So our company was founded in 2010. We are located in Marathon, Wisconsin. We are called Marathon Johnson for one reason. Marathon County is the ginseng capital of America. We currently have 4 gardens under cultivation. And all products, from wild ginseng to farm ginseng, as well as ginseng derived products like cosmetics and wine. Of course, agricultural tourism. Who else? You know, we Chinese will travel 1,000 miles just to see a ginseng, right? Including you, Jan. So our achievement, right? Let's boast for a minute. I think our brand, Marathon Ginseng, has been recognized or earned the trust of our community. And we were recognized as a genuine American ginseng production base in China. And we organized the first international ginseng conference on international standards in 2017, and have become a supplier to major Chinese pharmacies like Sinopharm or TRT. Over the last 10 years, we have supported many community organizations like UCA or Chinese History Project. Of course, there has been quite a bit of press and TV coverage about us, mainly in China, of course, in the US. So we were doing pretty good until 2018, when the trade war between US and China hit us hard. So between 2018 and 2020, the ginseng export to China, which accounts for 70% of our industry, fell by more than 50%. So was the price. Now with COVID-19, and there was virtually no air traffic between China and the US, so the sales of the industry were down significantly. We have been hurt badly. I would say our sales probably down by 60 to 70%. So as a result, there has been a cut, staff cutting and salary reduction overall in the industry, including ours. Of course, with COVID and lockdown, we don't have ag tourism. You can see in this picture, right? Who that is? That's Haipei Xue, president of UC. He was here a few years ago. So that's a good times. So how do we face down this pandemic and the social decoupling, supposed decoupling between China and the US? Ginseng is one market, or agriculture as a whole is targeted to Asia, in China in particular. Our ginseng industry export about 70% to China, and the major portion of soybean, corn, of course, goes to a major buyer in China, which is our Chinese market. And that has been significantly affected. So how do we face it? Of course, we need government support to survive first. And that's very critical in terms of PPP. Also, SBA loans. There are SBA loans available for the disaster injury loan, right? If you have not have it, I think they are still available. So for our market, in terms of ginseng industry, we have to try to expand in China. Actually, there are more activity on the China side than the US domestic market. And we have been able to expand our reach to Hong Kong and to Japan. So with the prospect of decoupling between US and China, of course, we need diversifications. For those who don't know, the first farm here actually is a hemp farm, industrial hemp, which was a major industry before 1977, when hemp was classified as category 2 stimulant by the FDA. So now this industry has made a comeback. For our local ginseng farmers, some have started to grow hemp. Hemp was a major industry in Wisconsin, that's 50 years ago, with about 20,000 acres under cultivation. And that was a big part due to World War II, when you need lots of fabrics from hemp, ropes, clothes, for example. And that's my ginseng farm, right? A happy ginseng farmer there. Now, oops. And then we have expanded into other crops this year. This is a green, this is actually non-GMO soybean. 95% of soybeans in the US are produced with genetically modified strain, but this is a non-GMO bean, targeting those in our community that might be more interested in non-GMO products. And the last picture, if you can see here, that's a different version of ginseng. There's a radish. That takes 3 months to grow, and which is bigger than 3-year-old ginseng. So diversification is very, very important, right? First of all, market-wise, we try to expand in the China market or Asia market. Of course, domestically, we are branching into grains and vegetables. So that's how we diversify. Now, of course, we would welcome you all, those in the audience, to come and visit our farm and ride our tractors. That's all I have to say. Diversification, government support, and expanding into different regions or different markets. Thank you, Jan. Thanks again. So any question for me?
Thank you, Dr. Jiang. Great talk. If you want to know more about the Marathon Ginseng and to support his beautiful farm, please feel free to contact him. So now we save the questions, and I'm honored to introduce you Mrs. Radhika Zawri. She is a strategy consultant and adjunct professor at SMU, where she teaches innovation and brand strategy in the MBA program. She is actively involved with many nonprofits in Dallas, such as the Family Place and the Orchid Giving Circle, a fund at the Texas Women Foundation. Orchid raises funds for Asian nonprofit organizations that benefit women, kids. She will speak to us about how small business can navigate COVID-19.
Hi, Jan. This is such a privilege. Thank you for the introduction. So good evening, everyone. When I was asked to speak today as a panelist, I was super excited because this topic is right in my wheelhouse. Like Jan said, I have been with large companies like Nestle, small companies, owned a company, and now I'm in the world of strategy and teaching at SMU. So I was super excited. And also just seeing all of you on this forum reminds me of the need for connectivity and community. I've had the honor of being a part of some community boards like the Family Place, but also the Orchid Giving Circle, which some of you might be interested in. It's a fund at Texas Women's Foundation, and we're a group of Asian women that help the Asian community, the nonprofits within the Asian community, by raising funds and giving those funds to nonprofits that benefit women and children. And so it just reminds me about the need of connecting with that community and asking for support and giving support at this very crucial time. So I'm going to jump into my presentation and share my screen. Okay, please let me know if you can see it. Yes?
Yes, we can say it.
Okay, lovely. So I just wanted to take a pause and reflect on how the pandemic has impacted lives as well as livelihoods, and especially as you see the impact on Asian Americans. So I recently read a report from McKinsey, and it was an incredible report that put a spotlight on diversity and inclusion and also highlighted the disproportionate support that Asian Americans are getting. Asian Americans are a segment, as you can see with these numbers, that are large. It's a segment that is growing very quickly and also contributing a lot to the economy and the recovery of the economy. The powerful contributions are huge. Nearly 2 million Asian Americans own a small business, and they employ 3.5 million people. So just to put it into perspective, that is employing 5 times your own population. So you can see that the impact to the community and to the economic growth and recovery is tremendous. And yet often we get neglected because we are seen as a community that's a model community of minorities and of immigrants. And so sometimes there is a gap between the perception and reality, leading to that disproportionate support that small businesses get. And that huge hit that we are taking as a segment is further affected and impacted because the industries and categories that Asian Americans are in are oftentimes vulnerable. And so you can see that there is an overrepresentation of Asian American businesses. They account for a very high percentage of sectors that are hit hard by COVID, and they're hit hard and are very vulnerable. So then the question becomes, okay, what can we do from a strategy standpoint and from a marketing standpoint, which is what I want to talk to you all about. So I have 3 very simple strategic imperatives for small businesses as they navigate this next normal, as we navigate it all together, and we try and come out of it as the best we can. And those 3 strategic imperatives are focusing on lowering costs, building trust with the consumer, it's vital for survival, and lastly, making digital your friend. And so let's sort of dive into each one of these. What do those mean? So tightening costs, so that's not telling you anything you don't know. But this is a time more than ever before where scrutinizing your costs, ensuring that your bottom line is as the best bottom line you can possibly get by scrutinizing every cost, whether it is the contract you might have with a landlord or a supplier or an electricity bill, or even considering keeping your establishment open during peak times only and closing it for other times. Not something that we ideally want to do, but that sort of helps us leverage the best and most opportune moments to make it through this difficult time. And also sort of knowing where your profitable opportunities are and ensuring that you are investing your time and your resources in them. Oftentimes with small businesses, we tend to do accounting on a monthly basis, for instance. And this is probably a time where you want to look at your cash resources on a weekly basis. So little things like that can go a long way because then you have your eye on that critical bottom line at all points in time. The next is building trust. Now, trust is huge with customer experience. And today, if you were to ask consumers, what does trust mean to you? Is it relevant to you? Almost 80% will tell you that trust is one of the most important value drivers in making a purchase. Yet, only 1/3 of consumers consider brands around them to be trustable. So you can see that there's a big gap. There's sort of a misalignment between what we feel is important and what we think we're getting. So there is scope there to build. And I think that small businesses, or even large businesses that will make it through these times are the ones that continue focusing on trust and really building on trust. So how can we do that? So recently I was at a small establishment and I was walking in and they had all these signs about, wearing a mask, something we already all know, but oftentimes we forget. So in addition to those signs, they had someone standing, a greeter standing at the door, handing the mask out. Now, yes, that's a cost, but it's a really great way of ensuring that consumers are doing what they are supposed to do, and you close the loop. So that's sort of called this carrot and stick approach, where you not only tell people what they need to do, but you close the loop and you ensure that they do it. And also surprise them. You know, how can we continue delighting them? So I was at another place, again, a very small establishment, and I walked in and they took my temperature. And you feel like, okay, that's a good trust building moment, not just for myself, but the ones who are around me in that establishment as well. And it's a very low cost thing to do, but again, that moment of building trust and delighting someone which they weren't expecting. So the three things that consumers really look forward to at the moment are safety, its comfort, and its experience. And so as you think about that trust building moment, think about safety, comfort, and experience, and how you can deliver them. And sometimes you might have to be overtly transparent to ensure that people understand that that is what you are doing. And lastly, I will say that digital needs to be your friend. And digital can sometimes be expensive, but it really needs to be your friend. So I've been having a lot of conversations around change in consumer behavior, which impacts all of us, whether you're large corporations, small corporations. And people will say, well, you know, is behavior radically changing? I don't think behavior is radically changing, but what is changing is that it's accelerating at a pace we hadn't seen before. So behavior is accelerating maybe 3, 4, 5 years out. We are sort of pulling that behavior forward, and technology is enabling us to do that. And so it's critical that at this time we invest in our websites, we invest in digitally speaking to the consumer and really meeting that consumer where the consumer is. Because what we are finding is that increasingly consumers are browsing and transacting at the same time. So it's that behavior online that has changed, that has accelerated and hence changed greatly. So you really need to be in that space to ensure that you're seeding your deal and getting your purchase and getting the action that you're looking for. So in summary, the 3 simple strategic imperatives I would have is cost, lowering your costs, ensuring that you are building trust. We haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg as far as companies that are not going to make it. And so really investing in trust, I think those are the companies that are more geared to making it. And lastly, making digital your friend. So thank you so much for listening. This has been a joy to be a part of this panel. And if you have any questions at the end, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Radhika, for your excellent presentation. If you all have business, you might find Radhika's advice valuable. Please feel free to contact her. Now I'm honored to introduce you, Wei-Wan Shang. Wei-Wan is a college fellow in the Department of Sociology at Harvard University and the co-principal investigator and lead research for the AAPI COVID-19 project, a multi-method investigation into the impacts of the pandemic on the lives of Asian Americans and the Pacific Islanders. She earned her PhD in sociology from the University of Texas at Austin, with graduate portfolios in Asian American Studies and Women's and Gender Studies. From 2018 to 2019, Wei-Wan was a postdoctoral fellow in the Weatherhead Center for International Relations program on U.S.-Japan relations, also at Harvard. Welcome, Wei-Wan.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to briefly talk about some of the research we're doing, which is about small businesses, but not only about small businesses. And we are in, some of the early stages of this research, and we absolutely, are interested in engaging with policy circles about this research. And we do have this partnership with UNESCO that should help us kind of make sure that our research has an impact to inform policies, but we are still kind of in the early stages. So I'm going to focus a little bit about what we seek to look at, some of our early findings, and what we hope to do with this research. So what our research is doing, and it's one of a couple of studies that we have coming out of this project, is looking at how labor, Asian American and Pacific Islander labor, has been affected by the pandemic. As part of looking at this, we recognize that API business owners and workers are kind of constituting a very large community that has a lot of diversity, as was previously mentioned. And also within that kind of realm, in terms of thinking about the diversity of small businesses, we can consider how among API, the API demographic, which is very diverse with 50 ethnicities, over 40 languages, there are very significant socioeconomic differences. And so, for instance, we can think about how when you look at, according to Pew, the median income of different groups is very different, right? So the median income of API in general is about 70,000, whereas within this community, you have, for instance, Indian Americans having the median income of 95,000, whereas Bangladeshi Americans have a median income of $46,950. And so even within kind of, even if we break down API communities based on kind of regional, right, regional groupings such as South Asian, we can see how there's still differences within that, and this is something we want to be very attentive to. And so one of the reasons why we are interested in looking at how businesses are affected, as has already been discussed, we already know that the pandemic is affecting the economy in very, very significant terms, and small businesses are part of that. So just to kind of provide some numbers on this that are kind of nationwide, since mid-March, the pandemic has led to the closure of over 100,000 small businesses and the loss of 28.6 million jobs. And we are still at this point where, this is kind of what we have had so far, but clearly the pandemic is far from over. And so the economic impacts are going to be, are going to just continue. There are news stories, for instance, about how different ethnic enclaves, Asian American ethnic enclaves in the US, such as Koreatown in LA, Chinatown in New York, already seeing the loss of some very kind of long valued institutions, restaurants and things like that, because of this pandemic making a lot of these businesses unviable, right? And so, even a kind of separating from, I'll talk about this in a second, separating from some of the other kind of cultural dimensions and political dimensions of this disaster in terms of how it is affecting people, we can think about how simply being in a disaster has a major effect on small businesses. And this is very much kind of rooted in different disparities according to race and ethnicity. So if we kind of look at some other disasters that have happened, we can see how, after disasters such as Hurricane Katrina and 9/11, a lot of immigrant communities kind of experience these types of issues. And 9/11, kind of similar to what we're seeing right now in terms of anti-Asian racism. A lot of Muslim businesses were kind of hit very hard, in particular because of some of the racialized stigma around that. And also we see how there's research showing also, again, after 9/11, how Asian American workers often have a harder time re-entering the job force because they don't have the same types of social networks that other communities may have, right? And so this can lead to mental health challenges. And so this is kind of the picture of what we're looking at. So we're both combining this sort of economic reality that is really affecting different communities right now, as well as thinking about some of the social and cultural dimensions of what is going on. So as many of you are well aware, since the early days of the pandemic, the association of coronavirus with China has led to an increase in anti-Asian racism. with this not only affecting Chinese Americans, but many different Asian groups as a whole. And so we're very curious to think about, as these different businesses are contending with these economic stresses, how is it that these different factors such as racism and anti-Asian harassment, how is that also affecting the sort of economic recovery that a lot of these businesses are facing? And so we're seeing this as a non-insignificant factor. And so this is actually part of our study, and we are suggesting, or what we are predicting, is that as we kind of consider the economic dimensions, we also have to think about how these cultural factors are shaping recovery, as well as not only in terms of, say, consumers having their interest in, say, patronizing different institutions or different businesses being affected by this racism, but also how workers themselves feel about being working in, public-facing businesses amidst this risk of racism and violence. So I don't think I have that much time, so I'll just very briefly talk about some of our findings. So we have done interviews with a range of API working in different industries. Just to kind of give you a picture, we've talked to healthcare providers, and there's some very kind of interesting stuff there. We've looked at restaurant owners and workers. We've looked at remote workers, and we've also looked at AAPI working in different families and nonprofits and things like that. So it's kind of been a range. But just to talk very briefly about workers. So we are already finding that workers have been laid off due to less demand or hours that have been cut dramatically. And oftentimes this kind of this sort of furloughing, right, is affecting them in other ways. It not only leads to them not having, having less hours and being kind of more financially precarious, but it actually prevents them from applying for unemployment because they're not necessarily being totally laid off, but they are rather, having less hours, right? So it's kind of this double bind where, because of the type of industry they're working in, and because maybe they're working in a shift-based job, they are actually, they're not able to apply for unemployment because they're still technically employed, but they are kind of in a very difficult financial situation. And we can also think about how, again, working in a restaurant, that is a very public-facing job. It's very different. Like, for instance, amidst this pandemic, I have been able to work at home and I have had limited contact with the public. But working at a business where a lot of people patronize, even with takeout, is a much more public-facing job, and so there are also certain types of risks as far as being employed in these settings. So it's not only this issue of these types of economic impacts, but it's also workers and business owners kind of being more physically at risk because they are interacting with more people. And so restaurant workers are not only contending with some of these economic stresses, but they're also thinking about how their exposure to the virus is also shaping their concerns about their own health and safety, as well as that of their family and people who they live with. So this is another thing that we have to think about. And kind of finally, I'm just going to leave on this point because I think that I'm out of time. Even without directly contracting COVID-19, we can think about how economic instability, racism, and all these types of stressors can affect people's health. And so one person who I spoke to, who's a child of a restaurant owner, was talking about how her parents were experiencing health issues, and it's not because they had contracted coronavirus, but rather because they were very, very stressed out from these types of different issues that they were facing, whether that be racism, whether that be trying to keep their businesses afloat. And so this was kind of a factor as well. And so I think that when we think about what the effect of this pandemic is on people and workers, we need to kind of think beyond not just, coronavirus itself, but also some of these accompanying issues that are affecting people. So I'll leave it there, and I look forward to any questions, and thank you so much for having me with us. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your COVID-19 project research numbers. Now I'm honored to introduce you Dr. Xiaoyan Zhang. Dr. Zhang is a data scientist and a board member or board chair of the United Chinese American. And she served as the principal investigator for several NIH funded innovation research grants and is a visiting professor at School of Social Work, University of Pittsburgh, and a member of Scientific Peer Review Group for CDC and NIH. Dr. Zhang served as CEO of KIT Solutions, LLC, from 1996 to 2014. He served on the National Advisory Council for Drug Abuse between 2007 and 2010 and was selected by Pittsburgh Smart Business Magazine for the PSTAT Award in 2010. Dr. Zhang served as a board member and was elected to leadership position of UCA and published many articles in both English and Chinese to encourage Asian Americans. He will speak to us about how small business can get help from the public resource. Welcome, Dr. Zhang.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, today I'm going to talk from a business perspective. Beside now academically, I'm participating in a number of national research projects. But today, since I think this is really timely, I really thank you for Jen to organize this session, because Asian Americans, we're also making very significant contribution from a business perspective, as earlier some other presenter already demonstrated from the numbers. I'm just share some of my own personal experiences. When I built my first company, by the way, my PhD actually in sociology, even though all the company I have run, high-tech companies, and mostly computer science and computer software services. So, but I learned a lot from the people I work with. All these are genius and programmers and designers and engineering. But what I have to say, my personal experiences when I start my first company back in 1996, and many of you may know that later in 2000, we have a dot-com bubble. So my company was almost out. We were deeply in debt, and that experiences actually taught me a lot. We survived and later thrived, but that time was tough. And then this time, 2009, for this COVID-19 this year, my company actually ran into a similar situation. Even though we had an excellent product, our service, our current product, back in 1996, with our product was mostly help government to collect data, and that's more like an e-government kind of business. But this time, we now have a new product line, which is focused on the fixed base flying operation. I don't know if you know that. That's in U.S. in aviation. There are two lines. One is commercial line. Everybody knows United Airlines, Southwest, and et cetera, those big operations. But there's also private clubs and flying clubs, and also private jets. All those actually go into a separate track altogether, and we have a system based on cloud-based technology to help them to manage their planes and scheduling, and their plane hangars and repair. A lot of those things. So we follow all the FDA and aviation requirement. So our system. Even though now I'm no longer, I'm still serving as a chairman for this company, but I'm actually on the second line. We have a CEO in the front line to deal with. But I observe we face the same problem. What is the problem? Problem is when something like this kind of thing happen, it's out of our control. We all face a cash flow problem. Every small business, many small business, not because you don't have a good product, not because you don't have a good service, not because you don't have a customer even, you can survive when something delayed. I remember back in 2000, first crisis I went through for the dot-com bubble. We actually we have a system that each state can use to manage their cross-state, their drug prevention activities. We track all their and help them analyze that. So it was hot. I made a presentation at a national conference. Immediately, I have 14 states lined up on the signed contract with me. But during our negotiation, this .com crash happened. So the state said, we still love your product, okay? We still want that, but they said when the economy go like a bubble like this, state anticipating next year's budget will be short for them. So they said, all they have to do is that we have to wait for another two or three years until economy come back. But that kills us because we already invested in the servers and teams and everything set up, ready to roll. We have Pennsylvania already signed up. We have Virginia already signed up. So I have 2 demonstrations already running, and we're ahead of the game. We thought that was our moment. But of course, the other like 7 states, the contract, they cannot sign. They said, we don't have a budget, I can't sign contract with me. It was so devastating. So I have to cut my staff more than half. We cut everybody out and maintain our service just to survive. So that's the cash flow problem, not because, and we also actually have a fundraising. We try to raise some angel fund, and I wrote a business plan. We send it out. We have people actually listen to our presentation. I was very enthusiastic, but all those after, the October, everybody know the Black Friday, October 25th on 2000, right? And my business plan was published October 16th, and a week later, stock market crash. All those people who promised to invest in me, forget it. They're hand shy, everybody away, and we were almost killed. So that's the typical story about any small business. How do you survive those lean time? It was so tough. We're in debt, and I had to use my house actually get a equity line credits to sustain the business. It's very tough. But there's a good side that, later by 2000, we survived, we hang in there. So from 2000 to 2003, the economy began to come back. And what happened is magically, during the crisis, many other small businesses similar to me died. So I realized survival is succeed because you're the one survive. So when the economy come back, everybody come back to me. They all want me because I have to be ramped up so quickly to meet their demand because all these already died. Not because I'm so, you're like in Strategy of War, the Chinese classic. I learned a lot from there. They're saying when you win something, it's not because you're strong, you beat other people, because others died. You just survived. All you did is you didn't make a mistake. Others made a mistake. That's the only thing. So don't overgrow like you're so smart. No, you just hang in there. You'll be able to survive. And this time, by the way, same thing. Our new product actually become pretty promising, and we have a number of airports already signed up and a company signed up with our product. So we thought this year's our year. We can take off. But of course, COVID come in. When COVID come in, guess what? No fly, nobody flies. So who's gonna buy our stuff? So even though a lot of people already want to express their interest, and we can't sign a contract because they don't know their business. They don't know when the corporate jets, the private jets, or their private flying club will come back to business. So they love our product. They say that's wait, but that wait kills you. That's the thing I want to just hear with you. And we this time we're more sophisticated. My partner's also a very successful business person. So he's Caucasian, and we collaborate well, and we already have our plan in place, so we can survive. And we got a PPE, we got other stuff. That's great. But what I want to share with any small business: always prepare for the rainy days. That's where it kills you. It's not because you don't have a good idea, not because you don't have a good technology. Speaking of that, there's another area I just want to share with you that I benefit a lot through my business venture, especially in high-tech field. It's SBIR. I think some people here, from government, you all know Small Business Innovation Research Grant. That's a good instrument. And I think sometimes we shy away from that. We feel so many regulations, you have to go through the competition, you have to go to review. Yes, there's a lot of scrutiny on you. You have to have a good accounting, you have to go to lawyer, you have all the other stuff. Yes, that's extra administrative overhead. But if you learn how to use it, it's a beautiful instrument. Myself, back in 2000, around 2003, 2004, that's the first time I was applied. The first round, it took me 6 times I almost feel like being beat up. And all the time I spent there, wasted. Finally got the grant. And then, they go to phase 1, phase 2, as you know, phase 1, now you can get at least $150,000 for 6 months. Now they can up to $250,000 for 6 months. To a small business, that's a good money for 6 months. That give you a good infusion. And best of that is, it is not tied to, this is not dilution. You don't give up any equity. It is yours. All the IP is yours. All you have to do is you mention this is a federal government supported research. You have to give their name, give their credit. That's all you have to do. When you go to phase 2, you can get now up to $1.5 million for 2 years and take your product to market. And so, at first, I said the first time when I did this, it took me 6 tries. I was crying, saying, how do we go through this so hard? But now, in the last 3, I hit it every time, first shot, because I now learned the trade. Because I'm sitting on the other side as reviewer as well. I go both sides, right? I understand how to write that. So today, I'm actually coaching a number of Caucasian startup companies spin off from University of Pittsburgh, from CMU. I'm coaching them to get this. So then you really become their partner. They want you. And at this point, the money is green. When you can bring money to them, all the colors, others disappear. They say they want you. They want to give you equity. They want to be part of their advisor, senior advisor. So now I can afford to do that because I'm no longer in the front line to running a company. So I feel this is a message I want to share with Asian Americans. Let's learn that. That's the U.S. government really want to support small business, but you have to step up, reach out, and you'll be beating up at first, but if you hang in there, you can learn, you'll succeed. So anyway, I just want to share with you, anybody in business, I always say, anyone that dare to step into business world should be congratulated, because that's not easy, because you have to overcome the biggest obstacle is yourself. It's the fear. The fear was, fear of failure. We all have that, especially from Asian culture. We're first generation immigrant. You want to be safe, right? You want to protect. You want for your children, all these things. But once you step out, when I started, I was a professor at university, and a lot of people say I was crazy. Why you step up? You can pursue your tenure, you can get your security in your retirement, and your children go to school, have a tuition waived. What happened? But today, looking back, I have no regret. Made that decision because I feel, it took me 3 years to think through, but I realized even I lose, if I fail in business, I already won because I overcome myself. I overcome that inner fear. I think that's, like Roosevelt always say, only thing to fear is fear itself, right? So anyway, I think that's the entrepreneurial spirit. I still believe this country is the best place to start your company. It's, I start five companies now, and now I'm, starting the latest one is focused on the artificial intelligence, machine learning, for clinical notes, which is a huge market. How doctors know to be processed, and that is very promising. Now I have a few, young people that work with me. They're all very excited. So I think entrepreneurial is a spirit. You have to hang on to that spirit. That will excite you. That's the secret of success. You don't have to be very weak Asian, like sometimes hold back. Don't hold back. We have to be assertive. Express yourself. If you have an idea, you have a value to contribute, don't be shy. And if you also know you have limitations, right? That's okay. Just be, if you know, you know it. If you don't know, you don't know it. That's just be honest, be authentic. And I think that's how the way to succeed, especially during this time. Manage your cash well. Cash is king. That's all I can say. I went through twice. I will still go through this one. Well, I just want to share that with you. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention. And we can discuss maybe later if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zhang, for your excellent talk. Cash is the key. If you have a business, you might find Dr. Zhang's experience valuable. Please feel free to contact him. Now I'm honored to introduce you, Maria Bagawa. Maria is Marina is the president and CEO of the Great Austin Asia Chamber of Commerce. She oversees its overall operation. Marina earned her BA and MA in economics from Northwestern University. She has been working as benefit consulting at Hewitt Associates with a family-owned plastic manufacturing. She was the language access and outreach coordinator for Asia Family Support Service of Austin. Marina currently serves on the board of a Community Advancement Network, Visit Austin, and the Central Texas Collective of Racial Equity, and as an advisory board member of Indie and the Women's Initiative on Entrepreneurship and Leadership Development at the University of Texas. Welcome, Marina.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be part of this panel discussion. I have a short presentation to share. So as a chamber, I'm a membership organization. My members are business owners primarily. And of course, because we're the Asian chamber, we're focused on the Asian community. So the Asian community in Central Texas is the fastest growing. In Austin, the population of Austin doubles every 20 years, but the Asian population doubles every 11 to 12 years. So we're growing twice as fast. And I just heard today from one of the reporters who contacted me. He received information from the census that we are actually the second largest minority group in Austin. And that report will be released tomorrow. So we're larger than the Black population. Right now, I'm serving about 590 members. So that's pretty big for a minority chamber. We work and partner with many mainstream organizations, including the Greater Austin Chamber. So back in June, in the middle of June, over a 2-week period, they commissioned a survey, and the surveys, received like 1,050 responses. So I thought it was interesting to share this with you. Out of that 1,050, 4% were identified as Asian business owners. So about 40, 41. So you can see the left-hand side is the percentage of business who say how they were impacted. So temporary close, it was already 46%, hiring freeze, reduction of employee owners, people who laid off staff, cut pay, suspend couldn't make payments, rent payments to the landlord. So you can see there were so many bad things that happened, and businesses were definitely impacted. And this was back in June. So we've slowly opened a little, but if we did this survey again, it's probably worse now. So, it's just been really tough for businesses. I think the impact on Asian businesses in general is going to be pretty similar. It's not so much racially the difference will come out, but more what sector you're in. So the survey did look at different sectors, and I don't know how familiar you all are with Austin, but we're a city of live music and lots of festivals. Our big festival is South by Southwest, and that was supposed to happen in March, and that was canceled before we had a lockdown. And that had a huge impact both on the company that runs the South by Southwest, but then all the other supporting businesses, right? The restaurants, the entertainment, the bars, even the folks who provide service transportation on bikes, all of them were really impacted. So when we look more specifically at our members, what their challenges are, so this is more like the Asian business owner. Number one is accessing resources. So they're less connected to mainstream, getting information about all the different resources that are available. A majority of Asians in Austin and Central Texas are immigrants, and have limited English proficiency. So quite often mainstream organizations will put information out in English, of course, and then if they think about a second language, it's Spanish, because 44% of the population here is Hispanic. And then sometimes they forget about the Asian community. Again, I think somebody mentioned the model minority myth, like, oh, all of us are doing well, are doing fine. So they tend to forget us. So part of our role is to remind them about the different needs that do exist in the Asian business community. I think Dr. Zhang mentioned financial reserves, right? So if you're already operating in a way that is all cash and you don't have an existing relationship with the bank, it was pretty hard to get a PPP loan, because the banks, when they rolled out those loans, went to their customers first. So that is another challenge that some Asian businesses, some mom and pops especially, are facing. And then I think Vivian mentioned mental health, and we know this is happening. And along with the business going down, Vivian also mentioned the anti-Asian racism that we are facing. And in COVID, a lot of us live in multi-generational families. So even if we are young and healthy, we live with our parents and we're concerned about our impact with them. So all these things are there. And with the Asian community, it's not as open to talking about mental health or seeking resources or help when they need it. So we try to normalize some of those things in our work. So government relief definitely has been there. The SBA came out with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or what we call the EIDL loan. I think a lot of people may not have known there was an EIDL advance, which really turns into a grant. You don't have to pay back. So when this came out, we made sure that our members knew, and then the broader community. And we looked at all the different resources that were available in different languages, and then we posted that. So because we have spent years building relationships with all the different ethnic groups, so we can send that out to them. We have WeChat groups that we are part of, and then we post them there. So just making sure our community knew of the resources that were available. And then same thing with the Paycheck Protection Program, that loan, letting people know it's called a loan, but it's a forgivable loan. And then what do they need to do to make sure the loan is actually forgivable? That was a huge program for businesses to take advantage of. And then with the CARES Act, a lot of the local agencies receive funding too. And that turned around into different grants. So for example, the city of Austin created a nonprofit relief grant, their own small business relief grant. And then so did the counties, Travis County, Williamson County, Pflugerville had a small business relief grant programs. So we monitor those things, and as soon as we see them, we let our members know so that they can take advantage of those resources. So for the chamber, our programs fall into this bucket called ACE. We call it ACE, Advocacy, Connection, and Education. So in advocacy, like mentioned before, we just try to make sure that language access, information, technical assistance is provided in different languages. And then we also are able to play some of that role. We also did a little bit of work on anti-Asian racism. We were really concerned about the different attacks that were happening around the country. In Texas, there was an attack on a Hmong family when they were shopping outside, I think like a Walmart or something like that. So we raised awareness, let our businesses know. We actually did a training on how to handle any racist incidents that might occur in your workplace. So that was on the advocacy piece. Those were a couple of things that we really worked hard on. On the connection, again, just getting the information out, doing referrals. I don't know if y'all, we're pretty lucky in Austin. Tesla announced that they're opening their factory here, and then we have a new MLS soccer team that announced an expansion before COVID happened. So there's a big stadium that's being built. You know, both these are huge economic drivers, and because they receive some incentives with the local governments, they have certain goals to meet to work with minority businesses. So we were part of both those projects. And as those opportunities come up, we're educating our businesses to the specific opportunities that are available. And then on the education, I kind of talked a bit about the seminars that we did, but we've done a whole bunch. I mean, one thing good about being in a COVID and virtual environment, we can actually get speakers from around the country and then do a seminar that, you know, we're promoting locally. So early on, we had a seminar about pivoting. So I have a business who he actually does plumbing, but he has contacts in Korea. And so he's actually doing like a disinfecting business now. We had a webinar on how to reopen safely. So even as you start reopening, there's so many things that you have to consider. How to keep your staff safe, how to keep your customers safe. I think Radhika talked about, you know, handing out masks to customers before they walk into your store. So we provided that, and then we recorded all these webinars and seminars so that our members and the larger community can easily access them and refer back to them. We also did a couple of campaigns I just wanted to share. I think I'm very proud of them, what we did. The community got together for the COVID-19 relief fund, and we raised $120,000 to buy PPE, and we distributed that to the frontline workers in Texas. And some of our businesses got some of those masks and gowns and gloves. And then we did an Asian Eats Gifts campaign. So we knew from our membership surveys that we did with our members that our restaurants were really hurting. I mean, just ridiculously, you know, business just gone. So we raised money, and basically we prepaid for meals, and we gave the money to the restaurants, and then we asked them to use that money, make meals, and then donate that to other people in need. And that was really a fun project for us. It really lifted the spirits of the restaurants because, you know, you want to work, right? You just want to work. And then you get this meals, and then you turn around and you give it up to somebody else who then in turn are so appreciative to the gift. So all in all, it was a really fun campaign that we did. And this, I guess I'm sharing as an example of different ways that we can come together to do something that maybe individually an organization or one business cannot do by itself. Just wanted to share, you can follow us on all our social media, but really that's all I wanted I had to share, and I'm looking forward to the conversation and questions later on with the attendees.
Thank you, Marina. Great presentation. If you have any questions on how to running your Asia Chamber of Commerce, please contact Marina. Now, I'm honored to introduce Diana Dean. First, thanks to Dingjin TV team for broadcasting all our sessions. Dingjin TV help us find more views. Diana Dean, 20 years experience working with both China and US companies on PR and marketing, founder and CEO of Silicon Valley Innovation Channel, Dingjin TV, starts 10 years ago. Dingjin TV is the first Chinese American internet TV and the voice of Asia America in Silicon Valley, focused on content and connection for Asian Americans and global entrepreneurs. Diana is an award-winning and innovative program director, radio and television personality. Diana started Silicon Valley Business Forum in 2018 for business owners to share the information on doing business. She organized the Civic Leadership Forum Silicon Valley 4 times, and a year for over 2 years. Diana Dean has been awarded as Asian American Hero by Santa Clara County, the board member of the Santa Clara Chamber of Commerce, and was elected as the president of U.S.-China Chamber of Commerce on 2019. Welcome, Diana Dean.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, everybody. Such an honor and great opportunity. And thank you, Marina, for the wonderful information, and Xiaoyan for you sharing with me. I feel so fortunate that I'm on this panel and listening to all this from informations and experience and stories from each one of you. As a grassroots media entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, there's a lot of to share. But let's start with a brief introduction about what we are doing here in Silicon Valley. So Dindin TV started in 2009 as a digital media and the Silicon Valley Innovation Channel and the voice of Silicon Valley Asian Americans. In the more than last 10 years, we have created more than 30,000 videos. Creating video is really difficult because it's much easier to write article or go on the radio, which I was on radio before. But video is so popular, and we have a studio in the center of Silicon Valley. And we work with some media partners and delivered our content to the 9 million audience. And in this last 10 years, we have organized over 500 events. We have a studio in Silicon Valley, so that's also a event venue. So many events happen. Last year, we had like the 81 events at our studio. And we have like over 100,000 social media followers on Dindin TV. So this is how our studio looked like. So we got the studio there. So anyone you want to organize event in Silicon Valley within 100, you can come to us. And also in the more than last 10 years, we interviewed many industry leaders in Silicon Valley, high tech, innovation, community leaders. Steve Wozniak was at our studio. Many of the Silicon Valley CEOs, they were there. And we also organized many events. Besides the small events, we also organized big events like Silicon Valley Entrepreneurs Festival. That's a 2,000 people event at Convention Center. We stopped this year, and because of pandemic. And last year was not so good because of the trade war between China and United States. We were not able to get the sponsors from last year. And also we traveled to different places in China, in Hong Kong, and give speech and connecting people. And this is our community. We got a lot of community connections and community partners. This is something about what we do at Dindin TV. But for me, this is my third company. I started my first company as a radio station. Long time ago, I was working in a high-tech company. And later on, I started a radio station with my colleague. And after half year, we're running out of money. So we closed our radio station. And later on, my husband opened another fitness center in the East Bay, Alameda. So that's my second company. Actually, I'm not I seldom exercise, so I know nothing about fitness. We bought that business and we didn't know so many things, and it ends up really we lost some money and learned my lesson. But in my heart, I always want to be a business owner, and I always want to do something because I got so many ideas, and I want to achieve that, and I want to make that my dream coming true. When we first started Dindin TV, and we don't have a business model, and I just see the need because so many people come into Silicon Valley every year, every day, and there's never been a Chinese American media cover the innovation in Silicon Valley and also in the Chinese language. So we started with that and started to interview people. And I had a very good partner he was the co-founder of Link TV, David McCallis. So he actually invited another very famous host to join us at the very beginning. Good Morning America's host from ABC, Gina Smith. So we started with a strong team, but in less than 3 months, and they kind of doubt about what we were doing, because they said, well, all the ideas, it looks like spending money, but it's not making money. So we kind of running out of money, and they left me. So I continued this company. Later on, we figured out, this is a lesson I learned. It's very important that, you have the business model, and you have to have like Xiaoyan said, the cash flow. When I first started my company, my husband gave me $3,000 because he didn't believe I could make it. He said, here is the money, all the money you have. Before you're running out, before you spend all this money, you have to prove who is going to pay for what. So that's the thing I wrote down I put the paper and wrote down on the wall and said, who is going to pay for what? So every day I ask myself, who is going to pay for what? Later on, we figure out that people willing to pay for the promotion, for the events, and business owners willing to pay if you organize event promoting their business. So we started that. At the beginning, I worked so hard because we are lack of resource, lack of money, lack of people. So I have to do everything by myself. I was even trying to, write code for a website. And ends up, I worked till the whole night, and till next morning, I stood up and totally lost my sense, fall down on the floor. We went through so many difficulties, almost want to give up, but I'm so lucky because Silicon Valley, there are so many investors here, and so many mentors. If you go to talk to them and share your idea, your dream, they will sit down and listen to you. When we first started, I was so fortunate to meet Mr. Sandy Chow and Dr. Shinko. They sit in the, I remember they sit in the coffee shop and listening to my business plan with my partner, David McCallis. We talked so passionate, talked for nearly an hour, and they asked me, and how do you make money? So, but later on, after David left me, I realized that, we have to really down to earth and face the reality. So I started to sell our service and package our service. And what I learned is, as a grassroots entrepreneur, you have to work with others because you are lack of everything. You don't have money, you don't have people, you don't have resource. You also, lack of ability. So we try to work with all kinds of organizations, nonprofit organizations and different entrepreneurs group. And we worked with over 200 entrepreneur groups in Silicon Valley, Indian American, Black American, Vietnamese American, Japanese American, you name it. Because there were lots of events going on every day in Silicon Valley. So what I was doing was I just searched online to see what's going on. So I went to attend their events. And there I get to know them one by one. And I schedule meeting and talking to them and find out how can I work with them. So ends up later on, I feel like, all the entrepreneurs, they seem like me. It's not you are lacking of money or resource. It's your mindset. You have to break through this because the way you're thinking, the things you see limited your imagination. So I started Silicon Valley Business Forum and inviting the successful entrepreneurs and investors to give talk to the entrepreneurs, because I got so many startups coming. And at that time, my husband, at the beginning, he was really doubt about what I'm doing. And he tried to stop me several times because I was so sick. I got pneumonia and very sick in the hospital. And I was crying, and he said, why don't you give up? Since you were crying, so you're weak, why don't you give up? I said, I'm crying, it's not because I'm weak. I still want to carry on and continue this. So later, he became the strongest supporter for our business and the first investor for our business. So I was so lucky. And so we started business forum and to sharing the experience for the Silicon Valley startup companies. And many people came to me, and so my husband thought, oh, you need a place. So he ends up, he bought a building as a Ding Ding TV office and our studio for me with 4,000 square feet. So that was pretty good. And he also invested on the equipment. That's totally turned over and changed the situation for us. So Ding Ding TV's office, our studio, become a center for the entrepreneurs and for the community. Every year, so many organizations coming to us and they use our space and having their event. And through events, I end up, I never need to buy tickets, but I can always sit there to listen to them. And also we made so many friends and connect with so many people. Only last year, we got 81 events happen at our place. So it's almost 2 every week. This actually opened our heart, opened our eyes, and also opened our network. But startup is never easy because then we started the Silicon Valley Entrepreneur Festival because we are well connected with the entrepreneur community, high-tech community, and investors community. So we started Silicon Valley Entrepreneurs Festival. And that festival turned out very successful, and we got like over 2,000 people participate in Santa Clara Convention Center. We try to find sponsors. We even found sponsors from like very big Fortune 500 companies. But later last year was really bad because the trade war, and we lost our sponsors from Chinese company. They are the major sponsor, so we lost 80% of our sponsorship. So we lost money last year organizing this big event. But the good thing is we still connected with those community and still helping each other with entrepreneurs and startups. And also I feel it's very important that it's not only business or your community or your own small community, because I was working with Mr. Sandy Chow and Anthony. I feel like civic engagement is so important, and we Asian American, very few of us really care about what's the real issue. Even when we vote, we didn't really know the candidates. So we started the Voters Education Forum as Candidates Forum together with CLUSE, and we organized a Silicon Valley Civic Leadership Forum for over 2 years, 4 times a year. So we organized many times. Then we're well connected with elected officials and the community leaders. I think that's very helpful. And this is also what I learned. When you do a business, you probably think you don't have time to do the volunteer work, to involve in the community. But actually, it's very important for you to involve in the community. And Dr. Shin Kong, he invited me to Rotary Club when we first started Ding Ding TV. I told him, no, I don't have money, I don't have time. You are so active in Rotary because you have money, you have time. He was so calm. He said, well, why don't you just come and just take a look. If you like it, you stay. If you don't have time, that's fine. But ends up, I joined the community. I joined the Rotary Club at 2010, and I keep going there until now. So we become very good friends, and it's like my home. Every Wednesday, I went to Rotary Club. I feel like it's like a relief and relax from my busy startup company. So it's really important, and also they give me the resource, and sometimes they refer the business to me. So when you work with community, it's always helpful, and also build up your branding. And in Silicon Valley, almost everybody knows Ding Ding TV. When they heard about Ding Ding TV, it's like, oh, it's a good company. You got a good branding and trustworthy, and people like you. But even though it's this, but still very difficult for us, because during the pandemic this year, we are the event venue, so you can imagine nobody's coming. So after March, middle of the March, and we stopped everything. We have to shut down our office, and so our team, some of our team members who's been working with me for a very long time, and they left me. At that moment, I feel so sad. I feel like, when people when you lose your team, it's like you lost your family member.
Yes, it's so sad. I'm so sorry.
Really sad.
Yeah.
It's really sad. But you have to carry on. You have to keep going. So later on, we have to change our business style and change what we're doing. So we started online teaching. So right now I'm teaching the high school students and young people about communication and how to do the interview. And our class is community ambassadors communication training. So already we got three groups of the training, and we have some great students. You see them grow and you feel so proud and so happy. And also their parents willing to pay us some money. This is part of the things we're doing. Another thing, during the pandemic, I was thinking, actually talking about small business, everybody's suffering. But there is a team, there's a group, they're most vulnerable, and nobody really didn't really care or paid enough attention to those people. Those are the content creators and freelance media people. Many of them, they don't have the company, so they couldn't apply any support resource from government, but they're still there creating the positive story, reporting the stories from our community, but nobody pays them. So I started in time of COVID-19 video contest. We got quite a few of media participants, and my time is there. So I'm going to share this on our closing ceremony. You're going to watch the videos, 1-minute videos from the professional filmmakers. Very touching, very inspiring. It's going to be on 20th, the Sunday, start at 1 o'clock. I hope that everybody can come and join us.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Great presentation. If anyone come to Silicon Valley, come to find Diana.
Yes, please.
Now I'm honored to introduce our last speaker, Victoria Lee. Victoria Lee served as Department Director of Watershed Protection and Development Review for City of Austin for 10 years. Before that, she was the Executive Director of the Texas Board of Professional Engineers and was the Permitting Director in charge of the Texas State Air Pollution Permits. Ms. Lee has served on the AISD Budget Review Committee, Commissioner of the Water and Wastewater Utility Commission, the City of Austin's Smart Growth Task Force, and the Traverse County Hospital District Board. Ms. Lee co-chaired the Bond Advisory Committee for Austin Community College and chaired the Government Advisory Committee with the Texas Board of Professional Engineers. Ms. Lee is served as the National President of PAPA. She is the immediate former president for the Austin Network of Asia Organizations. She also serves on the board of China Center ICMA. Welcome, Victoria Lee.
Thank you, Jen, for that very kind introduction. And thank you for inviting me to serve on this very prestigious panel. I have learned a lot. I was invited to talk about how government helps small business under COVID. And so I want to talk about the current status and how different level of government helps, and how the real situation is, and how we can solve this long-term, probably a very long-term crisis. So right now, according to the proceedings of the National Academy of Science of the US, it says that about 43% of small business in the country, around April, early May, they were temporarily closed. And many of them, about half of them, will not come back. And the Asian business especially was hit hard, as the previous several panelists have mentioned, according to their research. And from my experience with the community, it's only through creativity and also our compassion for each other that they created some very useful and helpful programs to help others, through helping others and help ourselves. And like the meal program to donate meals by restaurant, that one program was very successful, fed so many people who were starving because of the COVID impact. And then how the government has been helping us from the federal level, state and county, city level. We all have different programs. As y'all know, the federal level, we have the CARES, C-A-R-E-S, CARES Act, and it has budgeted $670 billion to distribute through the Paycheck Protection Program. And also, just a couple of days ago, the Fed announced that they're keeping the interest rate very low. And they are promising probably they will keep the interest rate near zero till year 2023. So for the next few years, we're going to have very low interest for loans. And then the second round of the Paycheck Protection funds are going to be announced pretty soon. As y'all know, election is only a few weeks away. So they really need to get to a settlement so that both parties can agree and send out the additional funds for the second round. And so for small businesses, y'all would want to find out the kind of priorities where all these checks are going to go to. And so get yourself prepared so that you can apply and get the second round of help. And the state, city, county, as Marina mentioned, they all received some kind of funding from the federal level. And also the cities probably all have their own budget to create different kind of grants programs and help programs. And like City of Boston, we have special grant programs even for artists. And then so people can find out. So the best way to find out is really trying to go through and get involved with the local chamber or local Asian organizations that's having a good relationship with the local government so that you can get the information readily available. And according to the study, the research, about 14% of small business would not take advantage of this very fantastic program by getting the loan that's forgivable. It's mainly because not familiar with the government process and was afraid of the bureaucracy or afraid of revealing information. And so for all that, I encourage our Asian business to, again, get involved with the local organization so that you can get well informed and take advantage of all these programs. And at the same time, if there are any needs, probably check with your local government, the city, the county, and they might have programs to help you to pay utility or to pay rent, maybe specific for specific needs. So, however, with all this money that has been distributed, the current situation is, it seems that the Dow is pretty still up there, and the inflation at the same time definitely is going up. According to some statistics, like the beef is going to increase like 8%. And the average inflation can end up to be around 10%. So all the banks will have to, they are getting the funds from the federal government, and they will have to be forced to distribute the fund, because as you can see, if you are charging people a very low interest, near zero, and then the inflation is high, then basically whoever loaned the money are losing money, and banks are in the business of making money. And so it's kind of hard. When I check with some small business, it's actually difficult to get commercial loans. And then because of our relationship with China, and a lot of our businesses depending on some supplies provided by China, and then they found themselves will have to wait for over 3 months for supplies to be sent in. And then if they get a supply, or if they get the supplies elsewhere, they would discover that they are in a situation of having to pay 50% more for the same kind of a supply. And then also, they also have found out recently that all the paycheck protection program, if you have a state income tax or a city income tax, it's very possible the paycheck program's income will be viewed as income, even though it's a disaster relief kind of assistance, but it will be viewed as income, and you will have to pay the tax, income tax on it for the state or city. And so all these are making our business suffer. And you can also see that the state, the county, the city's budget all decreased because the tax income definitely is getting smaller and smaller. And so the minority basically would be the ones, and as the research have shown, minority groups and the Asian community, especially because of the China virus that has been taunted around, and so have been suffered a lot. And some of the panelists' advice was very, very much on time. We have to create trust, we have to minimize our costs and all that. So today I want to especially and discuss with all of us and see how are we going to get the government to help us, because you can see that through this whole COVID crisis, it seems that the super rich is still doing okay. And then how do we get the government, how do we get the political decision makers to make the right decisions so that they will benefit small business, they will benefit and bring interest to our Asian small businesses. I think it's so important for us to help the government to help us. And I would say to face this crisis and to stay alive and to thrive later, we will have to take it as our personal responsibility to get the vote out, get the census filled, get all of us, as y'all know, the census for one person is at least $15,000 to $36,000, depending on your community per person. And that will be coming into your, the funding will be coming into your area. So it's very important, and the deadline is September the 30th. So to help your local government, to help you, you will have to get the census filled out. Every one of us will need to be counted. And then to get the vote out so that we will have a voice. If you do not vote, you don't have a voice. And the government wouldn't know how to help you. And to gain the opportunities to communicate and to get involved with the decision making, we will have to invest in organizations such as AAUC, the sponsor, the organizer for this community. And then we will also have to invest in organizations that's engaging our community in civic leadership, like APAPA, CLUSA, Ding Ding TV, and all these organizations, and get involved and try to invest, a certain percent of your business income to these organizations, so that we can unite together and have a louder voice, so that we will be able to help the government to help ourselves. And
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I want to share today.
Thank you so much. Now we are turning to our Q&A session, and looks like we are over time, and so we only take two quick questions. So one question is for the Changgang, is the president of ACP Foundation, and another question is for Shui Wen as the board member of UCA. And so the first question is, many small businesses have been hit hard by the pandemic. Is there any way to keep your customers? Changgang, please. You mute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, that's right. That's a good question. So basically, the customer always there, and they always have their needs. Then you will be their needs will be your potential business. So always keep touch with your customers and find out what your customers really want. If money is tight, especially in a pandemic, turn to affordable options such as a user email, and also engage with your customers on the social media. I believe the high tech changed the people's lifetime and also lifestyle, but at the same time, it makes your business not just limited in your local community. Regardless of the national pandemic, you need to keep promoting your business. However, more than ever, the message and the approach may be the thoughtful and nauseous. by keeping in touch with your customers' needs, that makes the relationship stronger, and also, in another word, make your business, keep your business. Yeah, thank you, Jen.
Thank you. And Shiwen, as the board member of UCA, and also you are a consulting scientist, from your perspective, how the pandemic affect your work?
Of course, it affect my work, and Diana talked about freelance. My client, mostly the government. And then during this period, government is doing the very best to keep running, but we all know they cannot be as efficient as we like to be, or as we at our full power. And the one thing from my personal experience is we lose a lot of data during that period, because a lot of scientific, I'm a hydrologist, so we need to get data for every year. Like for example, early spring, when the snow melt, that's a season, you get a critical data for snows, and both amount and as well as a quality. And then we all know this year when the snow melt is the peak of pandemic. And we do the best to do the remotely, but we were unable to send people to the field to collect that. So especially for the area, like I'm talking about the place like Alaska, like those places we closely monitoring the impact of climate change. On the other hand, I want to share about the up a little bit. So there's an advantage from a environmental perspective. Like, for example, you all know there's every summer there's a lot of our cruise ships go to the Alaska, and then many people go to the backcountry hiking, and then you will see. Duty at charge last year, myself was there in Denali. I was a backcountry, and then I observed how the trees changed, and it's not only a glacier melt, it's a trees changed. There's a lot of insect because of global warming show up there. So those trees the backcountry does not have any resistance. They can take that. You see the tree die. And then the local people, well, we bring the business there from the other perspective. We heard environment, we heard the ecosystem. So this year I was telling to myself, we were able to travel. It's pain for everybody, but maybe the animals and trees and then the flowers there were less affected by us. So I like to see some people, you see this is damaging and this is so miserable. We were unable to do our normal life, but on the other hand, there's the other half for natural environment may get more chance to recovery. It just thank you for all, and thank you for this question.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone and all wonderful speakers, and wish we could have more time. I'm so sorry, but we don't. And thank you so much. Thank you for all our attendees. Thank you.